in terms of bipolar, are there any things that cause it, or is there any way that you can prevent, I guess developing it or having it?
Yeah. Well, so those are great questions. I mean, bipolar disorder is very much genetic. Um, Most of the people who are going to get it have it somewhere in their family. And sometimes it's like a grandparent that never got fully diagnosed. But then when they get the diagnosis, they start to think, well, there was that period where sort of grandma, had some struggles. And so it's often, it runs in families, but that is not to say that it always has to look the same. We've gotten a lot better treatments across the generations, more medications that people can try, and we do know more about how to kind of prevent the triggers. I actually got kind of tired of that information not being out there. And so one of the things I did is I worked with colleagues to write a really short book called Bipolar Disorder for the Newly Diagnosed to try and help people think about, okay, if you've been told you have this, what are the triggers and what are the ways you can keep yourself a little safer with this? So sure, you get your medications, but turns out there's things like you should not skip sleep. There was actually an Italian study where they kept people with bipolar disorder up all night. And by the next morning, 10% of them were moving into having manic symptoms. It had really set off relapse for a lot of people. So there's something about sleep that's incredibly protective for people with bipolar disorder. So I always say that that's like one of the first things to kind of watch out for. And I'll even tell people, look, if you're worried about your kids, if you have this and you're worried about how to keep your kids safe from it, make sure your kids are protecting their sleep. People shouldn't do drugs that mess with sleep. So things like speed and cocaine that make people really revved up, those are super dangerous in setting off episodes. So there's a lot of things you can learn to do that would keep you safer from having an episode. There's a whole nother bucket of skills that I like to think about, which is, okay, if you were to have an episode, what would be the best way to keep you safe if that comes on? How do you have a doctor that you can get in touch with within a matter of hours who will help adjust your medications? How do you have people who love you, who know what to look out for, who would sort of say, all right, you're looking a little too peppy, let's help you with that? And then how do you do things? Often when people are manic, they'll do things that involve a lot of taking risks, spending money, being very public in ways they wouldn't normally do. And there's a lot of strategies to keep that kind of in check. So for example, some people sort of hand over their credit cards and their checkbook. So that it's like, keep me from spending money right now, right? And there's a lot of strategies like that. Like if somebody was about to interview with you and they were feeling a little manic, they might say, you know what, this is a day I need to kind of retreat, not do a lot of public appearances, just be in a really quiet, private space till I can get this under check.